Luis Francisco Soriano, also known as Jefry Yeyo, is a fugitive accused of the brutal quadruple murder of a family in Irondequoit, New York, on August 31st, 2024. Alongside his brother, Julio Cesar Pimentel-Soriano, he allegedly tortured and stabbed two young children, aged 2 and 4, and their parents to death before attempting to burn their home to cover the crime. In this documentary, we'll dissect Soriano's alleged crimes through the lens of psychology and psychoanalysis, exploring the dark forces that drove him to commit such heinous acts. Why focus on Luis Francisco Soriano? This case isn't just a crime. It's a descent into a psychological abyss, a chilling example of violence so extreme it defies comprehension. The sheer brutality of targeting an entire family, including toddlers, makes Soriano a haunting subject for understanding the darkest corners of the human mind. Picture this. August 31st, 2024, a quiet street in Irondequoit, New York. Inside a Knapp Avenue home, screams pierce the night. A family of 4 parents and their 2 children, ages 2 and 4, lie in the basement, their bodies torn by stab wounds, blood pooling on the cold concrete. The killers, led by Soriano and his brother, didn't just murder. They tortured, slashing and stabbing with relentless fury, then set the house ablaze to erase their tracks. This was a horrific scene, Irondequoit Police Chief Scott Peters told Wham, his voice heavy. In 32 years, I've never seen anything like it. This wasn't just murder, it was a calculated annihilation, a nightmare that demands we ask, what kind of mind could do this? Luis Francisco Soriano's life is shrouded in mystery, with limited public details about his early years, but we can piece together a psychological profile from what we know. Born in the Dominican Republic, Soriano, now 31, has ties to Rochester, New York, and Puerto Rico, where he fled after the murders. His brother, Julio Cesar Pimentel-Soriano, is wanted for a 2019 homicide in the Dominican Republic, suggesting a family environment steeped in violence or crime. Psychologically, this points to intergenerational trauma, where patterns of aggression or lawlessness pass down through families. Growing up in such a setting, Soriano may have internalized violence as a norm, a way to assert power or cope with chaos. Without specific records of his childhood, we can hypothesize based on psychological patterns. If Soriano faced abuse, neglect, or exposure to violence, common in environments linked to criminal families, he likely developed an insecure attachment style. This can lead to emotional detachment, difficulty empathizing, and a view of the world as hostile. Psychoanalytically, this aligns with object relations theory, where early relationships shape how one perceives others. Soriano may have seen people not as individuals, but as objects to dominate or destroy, a mindset that could explain the callous targeting of a family, including children. His lack of a documented job or stable life in the U.S. suggests a transient, unstable existence. Court records indicate he used a fake New York ID, hinting at a life on the fringes, possibly driven by paranoia or a need to evade authorities. This aligns with antisocial personality traits, where individuals disregard societal rules and lack remorse. His alleged role in the 2019 Dominican homicide, alongside his brother, suggests a pattern of escalating violence, a hallmark of psychopathic tendencies, where thrill-seeking and power-drive behavior. Psychoanalyst Francesca Biaggi, in her work on serial killers, notes that such individuals often act out a need to master their environment through violence, compensating for feelings of powerlessness. Let's walk to the nightmare of August 31st, 2024. It's late. The Knapp Avenue home quiet except for the hum of a summer night. Inside, a family of 4, a mother, father, and their 2 toddlers, go about their evening, unaware of the horror descending. Soriano and his brother, Julio, allegedly enter, armed with knives and intent. The attack is swift and savage. The parents are bound, tortured, their bodies slashed repeatedly, blood splattering the walls. The children, just 2 and 4, aren't spared. Their tiny frames are stabbed with brutal precision, their cries silenced in the basement's gloom. The killers then douse the house with fuel, setting it alight to destroy evidence. Firefighters find the bodies, charred and broken, in the basement. It was like something out of a horror movie, a first responder told the Associated Press, voice shaking. The scene was so gruesome that even seasoned officers were left reeling. Why a family? Why children? Psychologically, this suggests displaced rage, where anger from personal failures or societal rejection is unleashed on vulnerable targets. The children's inclusion points to a chilling lack of empathy, a trait linked to psychopathy. Psychoanalytically, the family may have represented an idealized unit Soriano felt excluded from, his violence a twisted attempt to destroy what he couldn't have. The torture and stabbing reflect sadistic pleasure, where inflicting pain becomes a source of power. Dr. David Buss, an evolutionary psychologist, notes that 91% of men have fantasized about killing, but for someone like Soriano, that fantasy became reality. The lid popped off in a psychic explosion of rage. What drove Soriano to such brutality? Psychologically, he fits the profile of a disorganized killer, acting impulsively with chaotic crime scenes, as opposed to the meticulous planning of organized killers. His alleged torture and arson suggest a need for control and dominance, traits tied to narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissists often lash out when their grandiose self-image is threatened in Soriano's transient life, fleeing countries, using fake IDs, hints at a fragile ego, desperate to assert itself through violence. Psychoanalytically, this aligns with Freud's death drive, a destructive impulse turned outward to annihilate others rather than the self. The choice of a family, especially children, is particularly telling. Psychoanalyst Melanie Klein's object relations theory suggests that early trauma can lead to splitting the world into good and bad objects. For Soriano, the family may have been a bad object, symbolizing stability or love he was denied. Killing them was a way to erase that symbol, to reclaim power. The torture element, prolonged, deliberate pain, points to sadistic personality traits, where pleasure comes from others' suffering. Dr. Michael Stone, a forensic psychiatrist, notes that such killers often seek to possess their victims through pain, a twisted bid for intimacy. Soriano's collaboration with his brother suggests a folie à deux, a shared delusional state where two people reinforce each other's pathology. Their history of alleged crimes together, Julio's 2019 homicide, now this quadruple murder, points to a toxic bond, possibly rooted in a shared traumatic upbringing. Psychoanalytically, this could reflect a narcissistic merger, where the brothers' identities fused, amplifying their violent impulses. The attempt to burn the house suggests a desire to erase the act, a denial mechanism to avoid confronting their own guilt or humanity. Irondequoit, a quiet Rochester suburb, was shattered. This isn't supposed to happen here, a neighbor told, her voice trembling. The community reeled as news spread, an entire family, including toddlers, slaughtered in their home. Media outlets, from Wham to the Associated Press, called it heinous, unthinkable. Police Chief Scott Peters, in a press conference, struggled to describe the scene. It's the kind of thing that stays with you forever. The fire, meant to hide the crime, only amplified the horror, leaving charred remnants of a family's life. Social media posts on X captured the public shock. How could anyone hurt kids like that? One user wrote, reflecting the collective grief. The manhunt for Soriano gripped the nation. Wanted posters with his face, described as 5 feet 7 inches, 150 pounds, with dark hair and eyes, plastered Rochester and Puerto Rico. The U.S. Marshal Service added him to their 10 most wanted fugitives list in Puerto Rico, where he fled. Soriano committed a horrendous crime, Marshal Okasari Barr told reporters, urging the public to call with tips. The community's fear was palpable, doors locked, parents clutching their children closer, haunted by the idea that such evil could lurk so near. On June 5, 2025, the U.S. Marshals, alongside the ATF task force, tracked Soriano to a hotel in Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. He was arrested without incident, ending a months-long manhunt. "We got him," a marshal announced, as reported by at SPC News 1ROC on X. His brother, Julio, was already in custody, arrested on September 7, 2024, for the same murders. Both faced charges of quadruple homicide, with Julio also linked to a 2019 Dominican killing. As of June 2025, their trials are pending, with potential life sentences or the death penalty looming. Philosophically, Soriano's case challenges our understanding of free, will versus determinism. Jean-Paul Sartre would argue he chose this path, exercising freedom in the most destructive way. Yet, his possible traumatic upbringing and criminal family ties suggest a man shaped by forces beyond his control. Hannah Arendt's concept of radical evil fits here, not banal, but a deliberate embrace of destruction, a rejection of humanity. Soriano's flight to Puerto Rico, then the Dominican Republic, reflects a refusal to face his actions, a cowardice that underscores his moral failure. His story asks, are some souls beyond redemption, or are they a product of a broken world? The Knapp Avenue murders left Irondequoit forever changed. Those kids deserve better. A local told North Wales live, tears in her eyes. Psychologically, Soriano's case shows how trauma, if untreated, can fester into monstrous acts. His lack of empathy, his sadistic methods, his flight from justice, all point to a mind divorced from human connection. Philosophically, it forces us to confront the potential for evil in us all, as Dr. David Buss suggests. The line between fantasy and action is thinner than we think. The family's loss is a wound that won't heal, a reminder that evil often wears a human face, hiding in plain sight,